All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. How is everybody doing on this chilly night? It is a little bit too cold for me here in Texas. And let me pull up the chat before I get too much into it. Um, welcome back to the show. We do have a very special guest tonight. I'm pretty excited to get this conversation started. Want to do more of this kind of content going forward. There we go. And thanks to the sponsors for supporting the show. I just want to do a quick shout out to the newest ones, AIREX. If you guys have any, I've gotten a lot of compliments on the penetration covers that they sell. They're pretty professional looking, clean, and they have this UV protection jacket that's really cool. So go check out AIREX. Also, CallRail. If you guys are spending any money on marketing, they kind of tell you where that money is doing well or not doing so well, kind of help you with your money there. So go check them out. And Resideo is a smart home system for a safer and cleaner home. I'll have more information down in the description, the links, everything like that. So I think everybody's already coming in. C Young, Jason, Nasty, Rudy, what is up, everybody? So yes, our special guest today is none other than Ty Branaman. Let's switch it over. What is up, man?
Hey everybody, how's it going?
I
So
hope
I do
everybody's
have
doing
to make
well.
a little bit of warning right ahead of time. My studio is literally a barn that I converted over, and there is a skunk like right there in the corner. So far we've been getting along pretty good, but if you guys see me like start gagging, cut the stream because I'm gonna lose it. So
You're gonna
just
run out.
FYI, yeah.
So how are you? How's everything up north? Because you're a little bit north of me, and Texas got some pretty cold weather.
Yeah, we had a lack of BTUs in the air. We were coming in a
Exactly.
couple of weeks ago from Vegas, and we came through I-10 South going to El Paso, and there was a huge car pileup. Wrecks were everywhere. We had to go way around. Like it was a scary, scary mess. But no, we just been sitting here chilling, like literally chilling,
Yep.
and it's been no snow, no rain, so like we're happy.
Yeah, my kids were like, "Oh, we want snow," and I was like, "No, you don't." Like, I'm okay because we had the freeze a few years ago, and I actually had to work through that, getting on rooftops and stuff because we had a lot of low ambient issues with charge and walk-in boxes and stuff. Like they were newly installed by another company, and then I was like, okay, they didn't put in the what you would call the winter charge, and I had to go around and fix a couple of those, and that was a whole headache. But thankfully, I got to stay home this year. Not too bad.
Nice.
I have
Nice.
a
Well,
lot of
there is
maintenance coming up.
with this weather, we do have that one issue. The government's looking for that weather because they're always talking about Snowden.
Yeah, I I was like, I need the little drum roll thing. Uh, yeah, everybody's looking for
Snowden.
Snowden. I'd seen a movie on that not too long ago. Um, let's see. What is up, everybody? So today I've kind of made it to where we can talk about indoor air quality because it's something that looking into myself right now. So I think Ty has some information for us. As always, the research, the information, do what you will with it. I just want to talk about the IAQ, and then maybe we'll get into some A2Ls later in the stream because that's a big discussion right now, and I would love to talk about that as well.
Yeah, that's been like that topic's been like on fire lately, the A2L. So
You tried to put one on fire.
yeah, it actually it's very disappointing. Like I really expected more flame than that. So and a friend of mine has done a lot of experiments with A2Ls and trying to get it to. I would never do that. But yeah, it was quite interesting how hard it is to get it to ignite. So just my personal experience, take the class, be safe, follow safety standards, do everything safe, be safe.
Exactly.
Talk to my lawyer.
I did I did see a guy that tried that with an A2L refrigerant. Now it was in a I don't know if it was vacuumed or anything, but it was in like a in a box. And they were like, okay, the A2L doesn't light it off, but let me try the R290, and they got a I think that almost blew the box open.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Now this stuff, like we're from Texas, right? So R290, R290 accessories, Oh yeah, that's my favorite refrigerant. It works just like R22, except just don't let it have access to oxygen. And yeah, it's pretty good stuff. But yeah, this stuff, we love this stuff so much we cook on it. We have it piped into our house, and we actually we burn it inside of our house for heat. How awesome is that?
It's just another form of, or like a cleaner form of propane, basically. So yeah, it'll light right up. So I don't know. We might ruffle some feathers today. I want everybody in the chat to, if you guys have questions on any of this stuff, please ask tonight. Tonight is the time to ask those questions. So I just want to kind of lay the, I guess, the backstory here. I've been looking into indoor air quality, right? So like I have a kid who developed pet allergies. I think he has seasonal allergies too. We've been trying to combat that with medicine and different things. And just keeping the house cleaner, right? There are I think there's a way to go about indoor air quality, and I've seen the video, I've seen the classes that Brian Orr does and these other big HVAC people that know a whole lot more than I do. So I was sent out a UV light to try out. So in that video, I did say UV is not your solution. It is not your first thing to go to. It is none of that. Some will argue that it should not be used whatsoever. So in this situation, I think we're going to go for, I'm the customer. Ty is the one with the information. Let him explain to me the whole UV thing. So what are your thoughts on UV lights?
Well, we have a few options here. So straight, just plain UV ultraviolet light has benefits. So, for example, we have an evaporator coil. There's growth on that coil. This light shining on that coil will help prevent the growth from happening on the coil. So there's a benefit for that. And you have to also take into consideration how strong this light is. It will tear up filters. It'll tear up evaporator coil drain pans, wiring. So you have to be mindful of the things that the negative side of that. Now, here's the thing a lot of people don't know is the air is traveling so fast past this, it doesn't do anything to clean the air. So
Yeah.
it has to be shining on the coil itself. Now, I've put in many of these on coils to help keep them clean, but that's still not the best solution. The better solution, which we don't always have the luxury, is putting in a larger filter underneath that has a much higher MERV. So by keeping the dirt away from the coil, you have no food for the growth to grow on, and you don't have to worry about a UV light in the first place. Now, it's not sometimes you just can't put in a big enough filter. And then you have people saying, well, a thick filter is going to cause airflow restrictions. Larger size. Sometimes it's thicker filter with a higher pleats. Sometimes it's literally a transition under the unit to have room to put a big enough filter in to have without causing pressure drop, keeping the velocity low across the filter. So like while filtration is the proper answer, a UV light on the side of the coil, is acceptable in some applications. It's an option.
It's an option for like because like you said, that was my whole thing, is I was told about, or you see it a lot, that it is treating the air as it passes by, and I understand that's uh a selling point for them that they can just tell you. But in all actuality, I've considered that too. Like the air moving across is going a little bit too fast for it to even do anything, because it's basically whatever it shines onto. So like you said,
Correct.
the most effective thing there is like if you shine it directly on the coil. Now I think it has to be a certain distance from it to even do anything as well.
That's
Um,
correct.
but I've kind of thought about it because I work in hospitals. Now in hospitals, they use those things. I think even barbershops too, like when they want to sanitize phones or blades or anything like that, they use UV lights as well.
The amount of time that it has to shine on those to do disinfection, they don't take that into consideration. So, like there's these nuances, right? So the light shining constantly on an evaporator coil is going to help prevent any growth from happening. But if you're just like wave this wand over the phone, it's like, okay, well that was a cool little like swing. It's not doing anything to actually clean it. And a lot of the airplanes they were talking about putting UV lights in, but they just put in blue LED lights to make it look like they were actually, yeah, the airflow passes
That's
so
what I always
fast, it
thought
does nothing
too.
for the air.
That's what I
And
always thought too.
somebody
I
had
was like, this,
mentioned,
this is probably just a blue light.
now somebody had mentioned, and I don't want to call anybody out, but putting it in the supply air. Well, I disagree with that because the air again is moving by so fast, it's not even giving the stuff a sunburn. Like it's just moving by so fast. And then usually people will rebuttal and say, yeah, but I have growth in my ductwork. Well, if you have growth in your ductwork, you have a bigger
It,
problem. Your problem is before you ever got to the supplier side. We have airflow issues, we got moisture issues, we got something we got to solve, and the light's not fixing that. So that's, in the supply side is not where this thing is going to do us any good.
yeah, because when I went up, now, like I said, I'm the customer, but I'm also like an HVAC tech. I'm doing an experiment to see if it even does anything. So that's my whole thing. Like, put it in for a week. I do have, I know it's not like a super high tech one, but I have the Atmo tube. I've seen Tim use it. It's a little indoor air quality monitor. I asked Tim
Now,
like, does it work? And he's like, it does okay. So I understand it's not gonna, give me all the readings accurately as like a high end device, but that's my whole thing: experimenting, testing it, see what I see, and see if it makes a difference.
I I am all for testing. I have three different types of air monitors in my house, and I monitor what's happening just for scientific purposes more than anything. But if you're
Yeah.
monitoring CO2, particulate matter, volatile organic compounds, and ideally formaldehydes, so if you're monitoring air, you can see what's happening. So when you're cooking, you get to see what happens to the air
Hmm.
quality. So that monitoring is important. And some people made some points here. They talk about putting in things like ionized hydrogen peroxides. These things are advertised to go in the supply air, and the idea is that you're putting out hydrogen peroxide that's just going to go out, and they're just going to look for bad stuff and attack the bad stuff. So these are not what we, these are different from our UV lights, different technology. So this one gets a little bit of a big lift, right? So we're gonna go. It's in the comments, so we're gonna talk about it. I'm not mentioning any brand names.
Yeah.
These companies have so much money, and they sue people like for fun. Like anybody that says anything about their brand, they will just absolutely sue them. Any third party people, they have so much power, they crush them. So I'm being very careful not to say any names or show any brands at all
Sure.
for that reason, because I literally live in a barn and my studio is in a barn. So like, I don't want to take my barn. So, um, anyway, so when we talk about hydrogen peroxide, when I grew up, we learned that we get cut, you put hydrogen peroxide in there. Now
Yeah.
we know not to do that. They don't do that anymore because they've learned that the hydrogen peroxide not only kills the bad cells, it kills also the good cells as well. It's a chemical
Wait,
reaction,
I
which
didn't actually
slows
know that.
healing. Yeah.
So now it's bad?
Not bad. It's a great disinfectant, but they don't want to use it on cuts because it slows the healing process down, which makes the wound stay open
Oh,
longer, which means you're more susceptible to
okay.
having
I need to
an
go tell
infection.
my family that. I've never done that. I don't like I clean it, but usually I'm at work and I'm like handling refrigerants and oils and like all this stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, just cover it up, keep it clean. So I was never one that put that stuff on cuts, but like my whole family does. So I might go back with a
So
little information.
yeah, now and you can look all this stuff up. Look it up, but look it up from recognized sources, not a product selling something, if you know what I mean.
Oh
So
yeah, do
now
your
we know that
research.
yeah, hydrogen peroxide for cuts, we understand now. Like a lot of us didn't know, but now we know. Now we got to think about if we're putting in hydrogen peroxide or any chemical into the air. And these chemicals react with organic compounds, whether it be a growth or a virus or whatever they want to advertise, it's going to react and have a chemical reaction. Those chemicals don't disappear, they're still there. They just make into something else. So if we're going to put something into the air that's going to go out and attack the bad stuff, it's not looking just, it's like, oh, that's a human cell, we're not going to attack that. It's attacking any organic compounds, including what's inside of our lungs, the soft tissue around our noses, around our eyes. And some people have had some adverse reaction, actually ended up in the hospital. It's fairly rare, but it has happened. So when you're putting out this chemical to clean the air, you have to think of other side effects. Jason Johnson mentioned O3 was bad. O3 is literally smog. That's what it is. It's a very powerful or cleaning compound. So if you put it in a room, it will kill the smells. Also, the rubbers, organic stuff, your body when you breathe it in, it's a irritant that people have COPD or asthma. So hydrogen peroxide is also an oxidant. It's a different chemical compound than O3, so they get away saying, hey, it's not ozone, but you're still putting a chemical into the air that's, you have to decide, hey, is it killing only bad stuff or is it just having a chemical reaction? The other thing, you have that chemical reaction, you have byproducts. Nothing goes away. You still have those chemicals reacting with other stuff, and they turn back into VOCs, formaldehydes, and H2O, water vapor. So you can actually destroy some growth, possibly, but then it's going to leave water behind to speed up the growth for the rest of it. And then you have these violent organic compounds. Your house is like a soup of chemicals, and you're adding more chemicals to it, trying to clean it. You could actually make the air much worse. And for like healthy people, probably never notice it, but people that are sensitive to it, it can be a very big issue.
So like in my just to, I'm gonna kind of interject here a few times, but like the research that I was trying to do, and again, I'm looking at this as a customer because I do know HVAC obviously, but not this in depth. I do more refrigeration stuff, but so when I was looking for a product, I was like, okay, what's ozone free? What is not gonna be as harmful? Doesn't make byproducts, and I understand that when I talk to somebody about this, they're trying to sell me something. Like I completely, I'm aware of that. I understand that, and just like Megan says right here, some of them do produce like an ozone that makes you sick, and it affects certain people and it doesn't affect others. So there's differences in how these things affect certain people, whether it's like the ozone or, like you said, any byproducts that come through. Um, that's all different. Ozone is like that. I think I heard Brian or somebody describe it as like when it rains outside, that kind of smell that you get out there, or something
Lightning.
like that.
When the lightning strikes across the sky, it's
Hmm.
creating ozone, which ideally most of it goes in the atmosphere, but some of it stays down low. And some cities will have ozone alerts to when that level gets too high. They have the warnings, and you can actually buy an ozone monitor to see what those ozone levels are. But yeah, when you it's lightning striking, and that's that smell, and it's not clean air that you're smelling. It's the ozone attacking your receptors in your nose. That's what it is. It's not that you're smelling fresh air.
Oh, I never liked it.
It's literally breaking down your nose.
Yeah, there is that part of it, and then I think mechanical made the point that I wanted to bring up. It depends on what you're trying to battle. So
Yep.
UV, obviously, we mentioned it already. It's whatever it shines onto. It just prevents that from growing, or if it's on there long enough, it should be able to break that down. But it's not. It's not cleaning your air as it goes through.
And I'm going to definitely talk about filtration. Megan's awesome. The other thing I want to mention on this, there's two big points I want to mention. There's multiple types of these
Well, that's
technologies
the
out there,
hard
right?
part too. Is they
So
all have their own version of this thing, and each one
uh,
does something. Either you could look at it better or like creates another problem.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. So, um, so they all say, hey, it puts out a safe level and it's found outdoors. Well, anthrax is found outdoors. There's not a safe level of that. So when we talk about hydrogen peroxide, we just stick with hydrogen peroxide, for example, because that's what like most of them are claiming. So if we think of carbon monoxide, OSHA has like what a level of something like 50 parts per million before it's considered dangerous over an 8-hour period. All right, if you're talking about vapor, carbon dioxide vapor in the air, not the liquid, vapor in the air, 1 part per million over an 8-hour period is considered too much. So we're talking about putting in something that's more powerful than carbon dioxide, and then they say it's a safe level. Well, I measure for carbon monoxide. I have tools and instruments to measure that. I have instruments I can put in the customer's house that measure that. Where is our hydrogen peroxide monitors to know that it's a safe level, right? Where are those numbers at? So if you want to say it's a safe level, if we're not testing, we're guessing. So what is that safe level? And nobody knows. This particular one, many, many years ago, it's like one of the first generations when they came out. I put it in my mom and dad's house because my mom had COPD, and I'm like, sweet, I want to make the air clean. I didn't know, I wasn't in the chemistry, but I had to think, how does this work? I had to know, like, why? How does it
Yeah.
happening? Like, it had all these cool buzzwords and names. But then when I started doing research, and there wasn't near as much available then, but there also wasn't near as much marketing either, I found out the truth behind it. And I was like, oh my God. So a few weeks later, and I was living out of town. So I rushed back home to visit my parents, and I took this out. Like, immediately, I took it out and I covered everything up and sealed it all off. And I never told them about it. That's been like, what, 12, 13, 14 years? It's been a while. They still talk about how clean the air is and how great that thing works. So if you want to make money, put them in and leave them unplugged, right? If you just want to make the money, put them in and don't plug them in. But please don't plug them in, because we don't know everything else that it's doing in that particular house. And that's the scary thing. And the marketing is so powerful. They make so much money selling these. So much money. They have so much power. They actually sued ASHRAE and some ASHRAE members that were testing it. Every third party person that's tested it, they've sued them to smithereens. And these
Mm.
independent people don't have millions of dollars. They tried doing crowdsourcing the fight, but the how brutal they went. They got access to their phones. They were tracking everything that they were saying. They put everything out in public, private stuff. They ruined these researchers' lives so that the word would not get out about what these things do. That should scare anybody. Like, for that reason alone, hey, if you're going to try to crush other people for saying something, like, that's a bad thing. The other thing is, any test you do should be opened up to third party review. All of the tests, like, oh, well, this was done in the study of Kansas City by some guy that spent his whole life studying meat, and they tested it in the size of a shoebox, and they put all this in there, and they found on the surface, yeah, it worked. So if you put all of this into a shoebox, then it's supposed to be cleaned, but still they won't open that data up for anybody else to research or look at, or to try to manipulate or redo it themselves. So all of the information was paid. Yeah, it was done by a university, but it was paid under a private test, and they only took out the data they wanted you to see. So none of that data is open. There's no third party. There's actually one third party company that was actually, if you look up the ownership, it actually goes back to one of these companies that make this. They made their own third party
Yeah.
company so they could say that it was third party testing. Uh,
Uh,
and
and
I don't like the manipulation.
well, the marketing, the sales pitch, I try not to listen to that because it's like there's always fluff, there's always other things, there's a way to word things to their favor and all that kind of stuff. So that's why
Yes.
don't don't listen, to me, don't listen to, some people selling you anything. Go do your research. There's a lot that you can find online. Or you can ask somebody like Ty or Craig or any of those guys that, know
John
more
Ellis.
about it. John Ellis? Okay.
John Ellis is the leader of IEQ in our country. He takes care of houses that have people that have very specific illnesses with air, and he goes through and solves those. So John Ellis has a mass of information. He's on social media. You can reach out and talk to him. Take one of his classes. But there's a lot. There's so much more that we got to go into
Because
it. So
no, I was just gonna really quick going through the comments. Like recirculation is another thing that I just started using on like any new thermostat. I've always been like, what is this feature on like when I would install thermostats at like these businesses, like what is this recirculation feature, right? So Aaron in the chat is making a point like if it does enough passes on the UV light, you can clean the air. But my whole point I wanted to tell people was the recirculation option even on a filter, I think helps a lot to get that air moving and get it filtered and get it through anything that you have in your system. Um, because stagnant air is also, to me, it's a bad thing as well. We deal with that a lot on the commercial side and stuff like that. So recirculation option is a good way to clean your air.
so that's a great point about the recirculation. When it comes down to indoor air quality, it comes down to source control. If you have growth, find out what the source of that was, where the moisture is coming from. First, address the source of that, or if it's dirt or dust, or like find out what the source is and try to address that. For example, some houses leak really bad. You can do blower door tests. You can seal the house. If there's things you can do to address the source. If it's chemicals, get the chemicals out of the house, put them in the garage. So source control is number one. Also, then you have filtration. You want to filter particles out of the air. This is like the cheapest, best indoor air quality thing you can buy. It's like the Corsi Rosenthal cube or the other one. I can't remember all the names of this, but it's really just a cube of air filters and a box fan on it. And people say, why don't you just use one filter? It has it with pressure drop. If you put all
Yeah,
these filters around it, you want the air moving slowly through this to really filter it. Ideally, you'd put a HEPA filter in, but you want the air moving slow. On our air conditioners, usually our filters are undersized as it is. They put the same size filter that fits under the unit. That's usually too small as it is. So the air is moving by so fast, we don't
that's
get
my
these
issue.
ultra fine particles.
See,
So,
that's my
like,
my issue. Oh, I'm sorry. If you
no, go ahead.
Oh, because when I was talking with the other guys on nights, like the whole thing with me is like this is an older house. Uh, I came into it later. Like I just got into it a few years ago. The main axis is in the garage. Our AC unit is on way on the other side. It's a long house. So for me to walk over there, uh, if I were to put a bigger filter, now the way that it's laid out, we change our filter in the ceiling, right in the grill, and I only have a 1 inch, you know, part there. So a 1 inch filter goes in. I try to get the best filter that I can without restricting it. Like I, said before, my son has allergies, so I try to make sure we filter it as much as we can. And it's made a big difference trying to clean up around the pets, make sure we vacuum, keep a clean house. There is that. Um, but I know a lot of people like to put, like you said, the bigger filters, if I can find a way to put one in, I'd probably have to move the AC unit or something, the indoor unit, to be able to put one. But then you mentioned that the cube there. We actually have these air purifiers that we use as well around the house sometimes. And it's basically that just, you turn it on and it does it by itself. It has a filter that you can change out. And we've been trying that too, just to help him, with his air,
Good.
his clean air.
It's the absolute cheapest thing you can do for indoor air quality. It's the simplest. Like, I understand that most people can't afford to redo all of their ducts right away. It's a simple way of filtering particulate matter. And filtering particulate matter is a big step, especially somebody that has allergens, because this is getting those particles out of the air. And again, it comes down to testing. You can watch for those particles. Now, somebody earlier mentioned ventilation, and ventilation is a must for leaky houses and also tight houses. We think, well, if we seal the house up, it's going to make the problem worse. We still have to address the V. On a leaky house, we're still having ventilation come in. It's coming in through the walls and insulation with moisture. It's making the air, like all that stuff, promoting growth before it comes in. So we want to seal the house up so it's not moving through the walls. But then we need some kind of access for the air to come from outside. Now, I ideally have heat recovery ventilators or energy recovery ventilators that you're exchanging the air, but simply an outside air duct coming through a separate filtration system before it enters into the house. Now you're addressing the ventilation. Some of the old ASHRAE books, they say that ventilation is next to godliness all the way through. I have quote, this one's from 1925. It's
Well,
before they
see,
had added the R to it.
yeah, see, my whole thing is, you talk about outdoor air, bringing it in. I never looked into the residential. I was renting, years back. I never really paid too much attention to the AC units there. Usually somebody else would take care of it. I didn't have to worry about it. But on the commercial side, and that's when I started thinking about it, because on the commercial side, that the whether it's an economizer or just an open damper, like the outside air is such important to these big buildings and a lot of the problems that they get. And it could be humidity, it could be a lot of different things, and that outside air really matters, or the pressure inside the building, as well. A lot of these things, especially if a unit, oversized, undersized, we can typically fix things with outside air. We've done that a lot. And then I look at a residential home and I'm like, a lot of them don't take that into consideration. So I never knew why that was, but it's something you should consider.
And it's not new. So we have source control, filtration, and then ventilation. And the ventilation, we have to exchange air. Somebody in the comments has said, well, the UV light's going to take care of the ventilation. This will not do anything for ventilation. As we breathe inside of a house, even if everything was perfect, we're breathing out carbon dioxide, CO2. That level is building up in the house, and high levels of CO2 make you think slower, makes you groggy, makes you feel like you don't want to do anything. It has a lot of negative effects. The only way that we can do that is dilution, and that's through ventilation. We have to get some of the air that's inside out and bring outside air back in. There is no substitution for ventilation, absolutely none whatsoever. We have to bring in outside air
But
back in. Have to.
how many
Nothing
people like
substitutes that.
actually have that? You know?
Lots of people all across the country, lots and lots of people. And especially once you start measuring for it, like I
Hmm.
recommend, I don't care what brand you get, measure the CO2. And you have people then coming back and they're like, hey, how can I get more fresh air? My bedroom was, at 2,000 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the morning. And no wonder I don't want to get out of bed anymore. Now I don't have to sell nothing to the customer. The customer's like, what are some solutions? And there's not one solution that fits all. You have to look at the house itself. And then you can go deep in the blower door testing and like all kinds of details. But the fact is, we have to look at the house as a whole. No light, there's no magical light that just makes the air clean. Because if we did that, we could just put it in the tailpipes of all the cars and all the smokestacks and just make the air clean. It would be great. It'd be awesome. It's like what's that poo be gone from the movie Envy? Where does it go? It just be gone. And then they realize, oh, chemistry. It doesn't, nothing disappears. This will not do anything for carbon dioxide. It won't do anything for carbon monoxide. It won't do anything for particulate matter, VOCs. It won't do anything for formaldehyde. And in some cases, it can help promote that. Ventilation. We have to have ventilation.
Now, I have a separate question. Because I think about attic ventilation, and we had somebody come down, and they do it every now and then. Because I swear I've been to one of these like 10 years ago or something, where they come down and try to sell you that attic fan. The keeps your house cooler in the summer.
All right. So,
I'm just
attic
curious. I had
fans.
to. That's
No,
one of my questions.
it's a great question. It's a separate topic. It's unrelated to air quality or A2Ls. But all right. So I used to also believe that. I used to put in powered fans because I thought I was making the attic cooler and making the house more efficient. However, I've since learned by people who have done the studies and done the tests and actually the whole house picture. I'm not promoting nothing.
Hmm.
This guy's awesome. His name is Dr. Allison Bales. He studies building science. He works in the field. He does everything he does, he tests. This book's called A House Needs to Breathe or Does It? It would really change your mind on a lot of things, but he writes articles too. And these articles are easy to read, easy for me to follow along. I learned a ton from him. And he wrote an article many years ago about powered attic fans and the negative side of it. It's really just a lot of times just pulling the cool air out of the house, and then you're pulling outside air into the house through the walls, through the insulation, through the growth and everything else, and it can make the house worse. You're trying to do good, but it can make the house worse. And I thought this guy is wrong, and I'm going to prove him wrong. And I went and did research, and everything I found proved the guy right. I'm like, you know what? Man, I was wrong on that. And so I learned one to research, not just to believe what I was told, because we believe like the first thing we were told, like we believe that the most. And then we have to relearn it, and that's hard to do. And if you're looking at a house as a system, like social media wise, there's some things that I disagree with this guy on, but this book is absolutely great. It's called the Home Comfort Book, and it's for technicians and customers to start looking at the house as a whole. I love to go to a unit, replace a part, fix it. I'm the hero and leave. But that's the house is the system. The biggest ductwork in the house is the house itself. We ignore the house. We have to start looking at the house if we're going to be in that field
It
because it's not just about cool air.
it's crazy because like I said, I came from commercial refrigeration, kitchen refrigeration. That's what I've started in, and then I started getting asked, "Hey, check our AC here, check our AC there, whatever." So like you said, you can't just go in there and change a part and be the hero all the time, because a lot of these scenarios, a lot of these calls that we get, there's usually a lot more to it. a leaking whatever, leaking duct. Uh, why am I not getting enough air? Why is it not like the unit's running fine, but it's not cooling or you don't feel cool inside? You start having to, I started having to rethink, the whole HVAC, because I knew refrigeration and the cycle and everything, like front to back. I knew everything about that, but the HVAC part of it, the ventilation, all that other stuff is what got me, and I had to do my research and then take a different approach to it. And we fixed so many buildings that had new installs and they just were not done right.
So you mentioned about commercial buildings having ventilation and residential, a lot of residential buildings don't have ventilation. And it really comes down to commercial buildings are all sealed up. You can't open windows in them. So they have to force in mechanical ventilation. They don't mandate mechanical ventilation for most residential. They do in some parts of the country because most windows are made to open. So according to code, well, if the customer wants fresh air, they can just open the windows. Now, throughout time, we've changed. People don't open windows anymore. Security issues, like, the dust outside. And honestly, you're not doing anything to filter the air coming in. So
Yeah.
we've had it to where code allows people to make the choice. But on the other hand, we've forgotten about the ventilation. And the ventilation, all the way back from, say, 1925, this is back when it was just heating, ventilation was a huge part of the discussion of the buildings. So whether you mechanically open a window and then put filters in, or you put a duct from outside in, or you go the full route to where you have a energy recovery ventilator. So you're sending in, say in the summertime, you're sending outside cool air. You're using that air to pre-cool the air coming in, so you're not losing as much energy. So you've pre-cooled that air, you filter it, it comes back into the house. There's very little energy loss, but more importantly, I don't energy is such a sales word because you don't make money on energy. Like nobody's offsetting the cost of everything on energy savings. What you ultimately need is a comfortable house, and you need good clean air for the structure of the building and the occupants. Because if you're pulling all that air through the walls, like windows, surely somebody in here has remodeled their windows before. And when you take those windows, don't really do a lot for the efficiency of your house, but the air leaking around your windows is massive. And when you pull
Yep.
windows out, you'll see it's all black. That's no longer insulation. It become a filter, and that filter then becomes a place for growth to happen. You got moisture and you got dirt and you got dust. Now you have growth, and those spores are coming right inside. And then you got people that are unhealthy and sick all the time and need better medical insurance, when really we could have addressed all that with the HV ventilation AC. And sometimes, hey, it's just as simple as getting a duct from outside of the return air. There's better ways of doing that, but if we do that, run it through a filter, man, you'll have healthier people generally, most of the time.
Yeah, we have what do you call it? Like on commercial, I'm always gonna go back to commercial experience. We have like makeup air units that are conditioned or whatever you want to call it. Like they have a evaporator and condenser to it, and it's our makeup air. That's how we're bringing air in, fresh air in, but it's conditioned. So whether it's in the summer or in the winter, it's going to be cold or heated, like you said, to help efficiency and comfortable and to be comfortable. But we're bringing in that air somehow.
Now, this is my opinion, but my opinion is, what if we said, hey, if all the thermostats now, they're not going to show temperature because it's an irrelevant number. They now have to show temperature, humidity or dew point, particulate matter, and CO2. What if our
Mm,
thermostats had to actually, now it's a number on the wall. So when people walk by, they see the thermostat. Oh, I'm not hot, but now I see that number higher. Suddenly my mind makes me think that I need to change it. Now, if they started seeing that CO2 number, even if we just did CO2 and humidity, they started seeing that number, they're thinking, hey, my CO2 level is way too high. No wonder I'm feeling groggy and tired. I need to call the HVAC guy to come out here and figure out what's going on. HVAC guy says, well, the last guy that was out here closed off your outside air damper. Let's fix that. Or you don't have any
oh yeah.
outside air coming in. Let's look at options, because there's not one size fits all, options to solve this. And then the customer makes a decision whether they can or can't afford it, or how much they want to spend, or whatever. Now they are balancing out the quality of the air versus what their budgets are, what their needs are. I don't push anything on anybody. Give them the option to make them make the choice. But when it comes to something that could potentially harm customers, I won't damage anything, but I just unplug them. And customers, most of the time, they still talk about how great something works. You should start selling those things because you've been servicing it for 5 years and it works so great. I hear it all the time. Like, just simply unplug it.
It's like the placebo effect. It's like they think,
100%.
yeah. What do you think about
100%.
electronic filters? I barely started hearing about those.
Man, electronic filters. Back in my day, we had the it was the Honeywell, and I called them the bug zapper filters. Kapap, kapap. And I'm like, but
Yeah,
that's really cool, and it had this like clean air smell. So what it was really doing was creating ozone. That was one of the things it was doing. But also, you don't just zap something to make it disappear. So they've gotten rid of most of those because of the ozone factor. But the idea is that they charge the particles on one side and then they collect those particles back on the other. Which, like, maybe, but really let's look at the thing of let's slow the air down. More filter area, more particulate matter is going to be much more beneficial. Now, talking about ionization, there
that
are
was gonna
some
be my next
studies out
question.
there that suggest that ionizing the particles, the idea, it doesn't do anything to make the air cleaner, but it supposedly makes molecules stick together, and that sticks to your floors, your walls, and sticks into the filter. Now, which is fine, right? Because you just have to dust more often or vacuum more often, because I know people do that, and then change the filter more often. That's fine. The worry about that is there's potential, and there's some studies out there suggesting that those particles will now also stick into your lung tissue when you breathe them in because they're charged, and then your lung tissue absorbs those particles in, and now they end up a part of your body. So I'm not a scientist on that. I haven't studied that, but that's a legitimate concern. So it comes back to me of like, hey, instead of making new stuff that we can sell and trick people with, let's worry about ventilation, right? Let's worry about source control, and filtration. And if we do those things, we're going to solve almost all the problems legitimately. And then there's like fans we can put in with filters. We could even suggest to the customer to open
Like
a windows.
or like a bypass filter is another thing that I've seen, where they add another line with a filter if you want to filter more air out.
Yes. Michael Hausch has what he calls the Frankenstein system. If you guys don't know, go follow Hausch's system. He has a Frankenstein system that he set up with dehumidifying and air bypass and like all of these like really, really cool things. Also, go check out the HVAC Grapevine. There's a lot of building scientist guys on there that will, guys and gals, like when I say guys, I mean both, but brilliant, talented people that will help guide you because this is a whole new world. They will help guide you through this. They've been there. They've overcome like how to make that big step. They will help prepare you and answer questions about how do we solve these problems. There's some great people there. You got like Chris Hughes there, Mike C. Oh man, Mike's there. So, I mean, amazing people there that will help you with the building science and looking at the bigger picture. It takes time. It's a big step, but it's so cool when you're able to solve house problems, right? It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we well, the only thing I was gonna maybe on my end close on that part of the UV discussion is, um, what do you think about it being used for drain lines that get backed up a lot or anything like that? I see it a lot on commercial. I only have a couple of locations that have basically an RTU that the drain line backs up into the building, because in my there's way more problems that we need to address if they allow me to do it, because for one they have all the thermostats in the back, no remote sensors, no nothing, so that kitchen unit runs 24/7 no matter what. um, so that creates a lot of moisture, there's humidity, there's other issues where the growth happens. Now I don't know if I can just shine a light on there and maybe keep it from getting so gunked up, but that was probably one instance where I would consider using it, in our business.
I think that would be a legitimate tool to use to fight the symptom. I mean, that's it's legitimate concern. Now we have a lot more aluminum coils, and when we had copper in coils, copper itself is works as a type of disinfectant to help keep some of that growth from happening. So some people actually put a silver brazing rod in the pan or a piece of copper in the pan. Do not let it touch the aluminum, but they do that
Yeah.
to help. Some people say it works. Some people say it doesn't really do anything at all. And I think actually the HVAC Grapevine had a really great show on that, to where they actually brought in a scientist, a chemist that actually did studies on what causes that growth to happen, and they found a lot of it just comes in from outdoors, like from our shoes, like the
Hmm.
stuff that's on the grass, zuglia, and then this gets into the air and it goes to the evaporator coil. Again, if we had proper filtration, we solve most of that problem. And then what happens is that zuglia, the stuff gets into the moisture and the cool climate, and it just starts growing like crazy, and then it just starts stopping everything up. So the idea solution, and Jim Bergman is big on this, is good filtration, no air bypass. Me as a technician, I realize that's ideal, but it's not always possible. So we have to look at what are other solutions. I know that Mike has been doing work with, oh man, it's high side chemicals. They make some kind of a product that you can put on the drain. It helps fight that. I can't remember what the name of it is. I'm sure he'll chime in. I use Viper. It has like some kind of enzymes that they use. Also, it uses a type of something that's slick that makes it not stick to the pipes. I've had good luck with that. I have some systems that are just really, really bad. And again, it's the
Yeah, I was gonna
airflow.
say I've tried a few things and I have one that is horrible.
And there's now a new drain pipe. I have not tried this. I just saw it. It may be complete false, but it's a new type of drain line. It's green. It supposedly
Yeah, I
has
saw that one.
antimicrobial stuff. I I have not tested that out, so I don't
I'm
have
ready.
a
Yeah,
proper
I'm ready
answer,
to
but I can say,
try it
oh,
out
good.
just to give a test and see like, hey, does it work or not? Because that there's one location I can think of, one system that is driving me nuts with that. Now they need me to do a lot of other work. I don't know if I'll get approved for it because these are commercial buildings. There's a lot of approvals that have to get done, and I'm not working for free. That's my main thing. So, uh, I might be able to sell them a new drain line versus relocating stuff and duct work and everything else.
So Jason Johnson said refrigeration technologies drain treatment. I've used that. I haven't had 100% success, but I've had good success with it. But it's not
Yeah,
across the board. What I will, and there's now a new one that has it to where it actually pumps a chemical into the drain line, and it has alerts and some really cool stuff. I don't know what is in that chemical, and this brings me to the point I really want to bring up about that. Is we have to be mindful of what we're putting in. And back in my day, I had people say, "Well, put some bleach in the drain," and then I had a
oh
guy's like,
no.
"No, never put bleach in the drain." And I learned that no, bleach is bad. Vinegar is also bad
Yep.
because we have copper, aluminum, all the stuff, plus all the stuff in the air. You're promoting evaporator coil leaks. So also those little drain tablets that I used to put in all the time, thinking I was doing good, right? I've made more mistakes than you guys have. I used to use them thinking I was doing good, and then I found out some of those have like chlorine stuff in it, and I was wondering why I had so many evaporator coil leaks. I did all the maintenance right. Uh, there's a connection. There's a possible connection. I'm not going to
Yeah,
accuse any product of anything, right?
I've always thought those were weird solutions, and that's what you see like people scrolling on TikTok, Instagram, whatever it is. You see all these either homeowners or like the I don't know, DIY people, whatever it is, telling you to put bleach and vinegar and all that. And here I am thinking I work in walk-in boxes that have like onions and other kinds of veggies and stuff. Those are the first ones to leak. They leak like crazy. And what is it? It's
Absolutely.
because of the products, the acidity that they have, and all that gets
Yep.
in the air and attacks the copper and whatnot, and makes everything deteriorate way quicker. So why are you purposely putting that in your drain line?
Absolutely right. And so another point is like I like the idea that I meant for. What worries me is I don't know what that chemical is. I want to talk to a chemist that can tell me what's happening. But the other issue that concerns me is we're not treating it where it's growing on that evaporator coil. So like it's potential that if we treat it with the best filtration we can without causing a pressure drop, and then we can use the UV light to potentially prevent that stuff from growing. These are all options, but there's not like a one silver bullet for everything. And
No,
that's we have to.
no,
There's
because
different
like
things that work.
Because you
sometimes.
mentioned it, I was going to mention the same thing. The refrigeration technologies, I've used it, and sometimes I think it works because I don't get any issues after. But there's some systems that it just, I don't know if it ends up washing away or whatever. Every couple of months, I have to go back out there. So I've been trying different things, and like you said, obviously there is a core problem, but in our world, in the business world, like we're not doing free calls, and we're not, I have to do a quote for everything I do. So there are other hurdles that keep me from doing like the proper work. And like most of the times I'm not installing this equipment, I'm going behind a company and figuring out what's wrong with it.
That's right. And we have to balance that. And I'm not saying for everybody to do everything perfect all the time. What I'm saying is I want people to continue to learn, continue to grow, continue to try to do things the best that you can, but continue that growth process of looking at more. Jason Johnson's an awesome example. I mean, he's grown so much. It's just amazing to see how much he's learned and he's applied stuff, and then that just keeps going back and paying off for him. Sure, you can do the minimum. I have people in every video I do. There's somebody like, you don't need to do that. I'm like, you don't have to wipe your butt either, but it's a good idea, like, you can be a stinky, shitty tech if you want, it's okay. Now, and I've cut a lot of corners, right? I've done things that I didn't know any better. I just want people to learn. Like, I love learning new stuff. When I learn something new, I get so excited and I want to tell everybody else about what I learned. And then I realize that a lot of people just don't want to know, and that's okay. If you don't want to know, don't pull down the people that do want to know. There's people that want to know stuff. Let's learn. And there's
Exactly.
some things that we're going to disagree on, and that's okay. Let's disagree. Let's have some conversation. Let's bring information to the table. I really hate it when somebody's like, "You're wrong. You're a poo poo pants," and they have like nothing to show for it. I'm like, you know what? Block. I love
No,
it when people bring me information.
I learned so much in the comments, and like you left me some comments, and I was like, hey, let's talk about it. Like that's the best way to learn. Go back and forth, because my situation was like, I'm doing it on my own house. I wasn't putting it in a customer's house, but I want to see what it does. And then I didn't have all the information. I'm getting that information now. Um, and Megan was talking about the that drain line, that green one. Something with zinc. They've used it, and they said that it actually worked
Okay,
in
cool.
their own experiment with it.
So one thing that I do is I rarely comment on other people's videos, and I do that because it just there's like so many people out there that just want to argue. So I try not to. So when I'm coming, like I come to you about this, like there's hundreds of people that promote it because I have a massive amount of respect for you, Adrian. I love what you do. I love that you're still learning. I love that you have questions. You do work in my own state. You do it on a very hot and tough climate. I
I
have
love it though.
massive respect for you. So when I come to you, I also know like he's going to be open to this information, and I'm going to at least try to leave there. So like there's so many other people, like I just ignore them. People will tag me in it. Sometimes I'll make a comment, sometimes I won't, but most of the time, like I'll send people a private message about something they tag me in because I just don't want to argue. On my own videos, I have enough arguing as it is. So I don't like, my job's not to police the world about these. Hey, I'm providing the information. Do whatever it is that you guys want,
Yes,
because it's your life.
you have your research. You actually, like you said, you've tried it. You've experimented with taking it out, and unknown to them, they think it's still in there. So you have your own study there, and that's what I was trying to do too, and get more information.
Yeah, no, I have massive respect for you. And
I
then it took
appreciate that.
because I knew you'd look at it. I spent like the 6 hours gathering up all of this stuff, just to send. So at least you have it, ready. So if you have the questions, it's there. Most people don't care. Like they don't want to know. Like they're just like, no, it works great, and then like they don't want to know. I love it when somebody comes to me. One of my favorite people is from the Energy Conservatory, Steve Rogers, and like he will come to me with something and I'm asking, and he'll be like, "Well, let's look into that, Ty. Let's look at it." I'm like, "Okay, he's about to teach me something," and then he will teach me. Jim Bourbon will do the same thing. Like, "Okay, Ty, what's one point of view?" And then let's sit down and talk about it. I'm like, "All right, Jim, let's school me." And then
Yeah.
I learn those new things. And a lot of times I will ask before I do videos. I will ask a lot of people to make sure that I'm not putting out some false information, because I have put out videos before that were false and I've had to go back and take them down, and then I have to do a correction video. So now I try, to put out quality information, but I stutter, I misspeak, and if I do something wrong, I usually go take that video back down. But I love it when people like bring information. I started getting these books because I struggle reading, but I found out these are where the dead people still talk to us. The people has been there before us. We're riding on their shoulders. So I can go back and say, hey, what did they have to say? And it's pretty cool to be able to see what they were saying in 1925. Like they're still
That's
saying the
crazy.
same thing. Yeah, it's
Yep.
cool.
If those are the what do you call it? The ancient rules that we still follow. Um, and HVAC grapevine, everyone tagged high on the ninja salesman memes. I have yet to see
Please don't.
those.
He blocked me a long time ago. Yeah, for just 4 quarters a day,
Oh, that was
we can have
Tim. He
fresh air. That was
he
Tim that did
added the
that. Yeah, but
music
I
to it.
I reposted it because like man, there is so much good, honest work we can do in this trade. There is so much stuff we could offer to actually help people out, and there's so much need for our skilled, hands-on, skilled and knowledge people in this trade. We don't need gimmicks, right? We don't need to like force people
No,
to sell stuff. Like we don't need to do that. Hey, let's be professional. Let's give people options and let them make
we could,
decisions. And you know,
and that's what we based our business on. Like I've never been into selling. I hate doing that kind of stuff. And if I could, I would just fix everything if they gave me like a good budget to, get everything I needed, parts and everything. So I have to make that fine line of when I'm going to, offer them a new unit or fix it because I've been burned before trying to fix too much and then they don't want to pay or,
yes.
whatever it is, they have complaints. So if it was up to me, I would fix everything. That's the way I was raised. My dad is not in HVAC, but he's in the trades. He did food service. He's been an electrician. He loves getting his hands dirty, turning wrenches. So we've always been that way. And I mean, we make a good living. I don't have to be selling equipment to live comfortably. But yeah, that guy, I just got another email. He keeps trying to get on my show, and I'm like,
So
I don't
I've
know.
worked for a lot of people over the years, and everybody I've worked for has a house that's paid for. Some of them have like some farmland or land or something, but none of them have private jets or go out bragging about stuff or dress like all these suits, and they don't talk loud on their phone so everybody gets attention. They've made a good living for themselves. They've taken care of and raised their kids, and they have some set for retirement. And I think that's honorable. And if somebody wants to like hustle and do more, cool, that's awesome. My issue is when we tell people it's like, no, you have to want a private plane and you have to step on whoever you can step on and get that money no matter what. Like that's like, okay,
Uh,
that's you. To me,
yeah.
that's not a tradesperson. Like that's go be Wall Street. Go be those people. They're all everywhere. Salespeople. Like in this trade, I love working with my hands. I love being able to solve problems for customers, and I want customer to respect us because we are professionals. We are tradespeople. We're just as important as doctors and lawyers. We are important to society, and
I
I shouldn't want to go to a doctor them telling me, "Hey, you need to take this fancy whatever, and it's going to solve all your problems." And
Yeah, around here
my opinions.
that wouldn't even fly because they'll just call another company. Somebody will do it cheaper. That's always the thing here.
And I let them.
But
My job is not to be the cheapest person. I want to be
oh
known
no,
as one of the best. And sometimes hey, look, I'm gonna do this band-aid. I do not recommend, like, it's not gonna last, but I will do this to help you out. And they may or may not use me when it comes time to replace the equipment, but at least I've done everything that I feel comfortable with doing. And I'm still gonna charge what I charge. My soft spot is elderly people on a fixed income. That's my soft spot. I will gosh, I've spent a lot of time trying to get people back online and help those people out. But like they've been here before us. They've been through the struggles, and that's my personal soft spot. But other than that, like I think yeah, we should get paid a good wage. We shouldn't have to sell every little gimmick that we can to get a good wage. My
no.
opinion.
What is Ty teaching at the symposium in Orlando?
Man, I don't even know. I signed up for that like a while ago. I need to look at that. It's coming up, so I should probably know ahead of time. Like last year was teaching the invisible, and I think that's such an important topic because I talk about teaching it. Refrigerant's invisible, the air's invisible, but also for us technicians, the problems with the air, the CO2, volatile organic compounds, the particulate matter, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, all the stuff in the air, it's invisible, but there's still problems. So until we learn how to measure it so that we can have a visual reference from it, room pressurization, the roomulator, being able to see how much pressures across that doorway, all of these things, we can make the air now visible. We can start seeing these problems and start solving bigger problems. There's a lot of people that they were fighting that fight on residential where you're just, everybody wants it cheap, everybody wants it cheap. But then when you finally start moving into home performance and you get people that want healthy houses, and there's not a lot of people that can do this. And that's where you start getting into, you're getting away from your competition because you're doing something skilled wise, knowledge wise, they cannot do. And that's why I like, now I am going to warn you, when you get into the building science stuff, a lot of these people are really great, amazing people. A lot of them also have egos. I've had egos before too. I still do from time to time, but they will sometimes like, you have to do everything right or not at all. So you like, that's why I say these two books are a great way to start, and then get into those groups because they will start helping you and guiding you. But it is overwhelming, but it's cool when you start fixing house problems. It's awesome.
Actual, yeah, solving actual
Yeah.
problems. Um, well, I wanted to kind of move over to A2Ls really quick. Uh,
Okay.
so that is a big talk, and in my opinion, sometimes a marketing scheme for certain things. But what's your thought on A2Ls? Is there going to be? I feel like there's not much of a difference procedure wise. You just have to be aware that it's slightly more flammable, as you've tested. I think you've already shown that it's not really a big deal to worry about.
So I want to start off by saying I had nothing to do with any of these law changes or any of the government stuff or any of these restrictions. Every time I do a video on A2Ls, oh my gosh, I get so much hate from people. And I'm like, look, I had nothing to do with this. I'm providing a free video to help get you used to what is
It
actually
it's
happening.
happening whether anybody likes it or not.
That's it. Right? So R32, for example, the new R32, I can't afford 454B. It's like twice the price. But this R32, the single molecule refrigerator, it's been used in the world for over a decade. It's only new to us. So if we look at the chemical makeup, I don't know if this is going to show.
It does.
This is a molecule of R32, right? It's a single molecule. It's made of a carbon, two fluoride molecules, and atoms, and two hydrogen atoms. That together makes up a molecule. There's no propane in that because propane is a different molecule. Let's take a look at what propane actually looks like, because this is the thing we hear the most. Right?
Oh, they're
That's
confusing it
that's
with
propane. It
the
is
others.
entirely different. Like there's nothing about that that's the same. It's an entirely different molecule. So R32 is a pure substance, and then we also have 454B. 454B is a blend, and it's like a 68.9% R32, and it's 31.1% R1234YF. And there's a picture of each of those molecules on there as well. No propane in there, but it is mildly flammable. And people say, well, there's no such thing as mildly flammable. It's either flammable or not. Okay, then explain the difference to me between trying to light diesel on fire and trying to light gasoline on fire. There's a huge difference in the flammability of those two things. Right? So it is different. Now, R32, this I have to have a tank adapter on here, and I've spent 30 years screwing this on one way. And now I have to tell my mind that there's two connections and one screws one way and one screws the other way. So notoriously, I end up with these leaking. The
Yeah.
hose adapters are like $9, but I recommend buying the hose. Navac sells it with reverse threads on the hose. The reason is because it's only one connection you have to turn. Because when I tighten this one, I'm loosening the other one. If I tighten the other one, I loosen this one. And my mind of doing this for 30 years
Oh
isn't
yeah.
liking the new
Well, like,
thing I'm trying to tell it to do.
is there even a good reason for that other than mild flammability?
And I've talked to so many people about that, and they said because flammable substances have reverse threads. Like acetylene has reverse threads. Propane, I think, has reverse. So they just kept in with that. And I don't know that that was a good decision at all. I don't know if any of this was a good decision at all. It's just what we have to work with.
That's what they did. I mean, you're
So,
not going to be
yeah.
able to use R32 as your acetylene in your torches or anything like that. So I figured they're different. Like you don't have to do that, but it's an extra thing to sell you in my mind.
So this tank is notorious for leaking. Like I just, but
Yeah, de minimis.
there we go. Right. That's it. Right. Right. We're gonna. There's the residual. It's off. Um, right. I didn't. I didn't blow up. I didn't die. Right. It's that now. Was there a potential for more flammable? Yeah, sure. There's a potential for it. Yeah, but actually having like the spread of that flame was so slow. Like the refrigerant flowing out was faster than that flame spread. And if we look, there's other things that we use that are actually more flammable, like dust off. Use to clean. This is an A2, so this is actually way more flammable than the
Hmm.
R32. I can probably get. Oops. Let me see
I
if I can
think
get this to spray. Here we go.
I think a lot of us have tried that. Yep,
See? Look at that. Now that's a flame.
that's
This
a
is an
flame.
A2. Now that, and once I take the flame away, it will usually try to stay. Well, even that doesn't stay lit on its own.
Yeah.
That's an A2. This is an A2L, mildly flammable, right? Still some risk. We need to flow nitrogen while we're brazing. We were supposed to do that anyways. It's not a new thing.
Well, that's why I
Now you're
said
going to do
procedures
it.
don't change.
Yes. So, yeah, flow nitrogen. And then, like, there's safety protocols that you're supposed to do. Like, oh man, like, there's a whole list. Now,
They're not
the
going to
class,
explode.
Jason Obzut, he wrote the book on it. They have a class from ESCO. I do not work at ESCO, but Jason Obzut is an amazing person. ESCO is amazing. Everybody at ESCO, absolutely amazing, brilliant, smart people. They literally wrote the book on it. They have online tests for it. They also do supply house training all across the country. And take that class and you'll learn a lot. Now, here's the problem. Once you are certified to teach, there's nobody regulating what you're teaching. So there's a lot of instructors out there teaching A2O classes that are spreading false information. And I have to deal with this all the time. They're telling people you have to buy all new equipment. And that
Oh,
is
it's like
simply
I just
not
pulled.
true.
I don't have it pulled up right now, but I pulled up some analog gauges that had the A2L sticker on them.
Yes. Yeah. It's brass. There's
Yeah,
nothing in here to have a spark. The only difference on an A2O gauge is it has the
is a
TMP
number.
chart built into it. Like you tell me I have to buy new gauges for this? You can kiss my brass because it's
Yeah.
brass, right? You don't need new gauge. You might have to get a temperature pressure chart, right? That has the new refrigerants. I only use gauges anyways for old equipment that I don't want to put my probes on. Even digital gauges, I just personal preference. I love using probes. It's just so much faster to get superheat, subcooling, and all the calculations. But no, you don't need
Well,
new gauges.
see, that's my other thing is I've been trying to I've gone away from like defending analogs because you know that was always everybody's like you have to have analogs, you have to use them, you have to learn this and that. Like you really don't. I mean, if I had a new guy and he wanted to use probes, I'm perfectly fine with that. Um, obviously understand what those numbers mean, and that's what the talk that I've had with people like don't look at the pressure, look at the the temperatures, saturation, all that. And that's
I love
what
you, man.
hey, I've been like that since I got out of school. I used to butt heads with a lot of the older techs like, "No, I need this pressure, this that." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I was taught temperatures. Like we need temperatures and saturations and, dew points, everything, and you get a better picture of the system." And I still feel like that now. I just don't care if you're using analog or digital. I
I don't
don't
either.
defend analog as much anymore because I don't feel like you have to have it. It's not a rite of passage or anything. Like you can go digital if you want. And if anything, it's easier because I used to carry around that PT chart that you had in my back pocket all the time. And now you can use your phone for everything.
Well, this is off the topic, but trying to see when you get older, trying to see where that needle's pointing at. And now that we have higher pressure, there's
Well,
more
that
numbers in a tighter area. And then you look at the chart and it skips by
yes,
5.
I was
How
gonna say
accurate are
that
you?
the other thing is the accuracy because you're only able to see every increments of whatever the gauge is, and then when you're trying to convert it, because again, coming from refrigeration, I had to deal with 404, 502, 407, like so many refrigerants, and I'm like, okay, is it closer to this temperature or this temperature? Like I'm trying to guess based on the increments. So I would rather have more accuracy if you go digital.
Here's the other thing I like about probes is there's no hoses
The
because
loss,
people
yeah.
bleed across the manifold, and even if they bleed the hoses, you still have air trapped here or other refrigerant. You're literally pushing all that into the system every single time.
I am guilty. When I
I've been
started,
there.
I never purged out my
I,
manifold, and then I was
I
like,
had to
"Oh
learn.
crap! Okay, I have to do that now." And then sometimes you forget, like it's a thing. Um, just like when you
So
recover anything like that, you got to purge.
even if you don't want to go with digital probes, you can get the adapter that takes an analog gauge and it removes the hose and you put it right on the service port. Like even if
I
you
have
want to
those.
stay gauge, I call them lollipops. We use those for ice machines back in the day, and
I
then we
work
went
on
with
a
digital and now we have probes.
I work on a ton of
But
ice machines. You got to have a stubby or the probes.
the did you back in the 80s we had vanilla ice. Did you know that? Yeah,
Yeah, I'm old enough to
vanilla
know that.
ice. Yeah. So the vacuum pumps. People are like, you have to buy a new vacuum pump. Okay, so Navac is one of many. I'm not sponsored by anybody. They're
Yeah,
just
we're
one
not
of many
sponsored
brands. They
by
make those
any companies that we put on here, so
right. So I'm not. I don't care what brand of vacuum pump you have. Change the oil in it. Keep it working good. But Navac took a lot of extra steps to make sure their systems were better prepared to reduce the risk of spark. Right. So that's cool. But also, I have an old Appion pump that's I don't know, like 15 years old. It leaks oil everywhere. I don't use it much anymore. But they put out a bulletin saying that that old pump will still work with A2Ls because the risk is so low. They tested it. There's a lot of manufacturers that have recertified or tested to say their old vacuum pumps are still safe. And a lot of them have the same exact sticker on an older model and a new model. They just put the sticker on there. Now, some manufacturers, there's one in particular, I'm not going to call them out. It's just two initials. But that brand, I can't find anything that they recertified their existing pumps. So they have the same model number pump, but then they changed the switch and they said now it's A2L safe. But let's think about reality. Okay, let's say even if they're using the old pump, by my official answer is use whatever the manufacturer says it's rated for. Me personally, who's been through the safety training and taught tons of safety training and played with this, I'm going to think, hey, if I'm pulling from a new system that's never had refrigerant, it's not going to matter because no refrigerant's going through there. If I'm pulling from a compressor that's had refrigerant in it, when you pull the vacuum, you're going to boil that oil out of the compressor and that refrigerant will go through your vacuum pump and out the port, which is why I like to also have a hose so I can run that vent outside if I'm in an enclosed mechanical room. Most people work outside, so if you have a good breeze, plenty of air open, it's unlikely that you're going to have an issue. For me, I'm not worried about using even a 40-year-old vacuum pump on A2Ls, but that's my personal thing. I recommend you doing whatever the manufacturer said and make sure they're approved for that refrigerant, if you know what I mean.
yeah, and I talked to the other guys, and Kurt was like, "I have an old pump that I'm still gonna use whenever we change over." Like, it's good to know, and it's good to be caught up on everything changing, all the new laws and everything. But like, it's not the craziest difference. And I know people get confused with it being like propane based and all that. That
Ooh,
is
that's different,
I deal with that. That is R290. That is R600. I deal with that. You're not going to see that in a house.
unless it's a refrigerator.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting that we've always had that. It's in your refrigerator.
Oops, there we go. Boom, there we go.
600. Yep.
R600. Yep. R600A. The lowercase a means it's oh gosh, I just evaded me. It's they just modified the R600 to change the chemical up a little bit, but it's butane. So R600A is
Yeah.
isobutane. It's an isotope, and then R290 is just pure filtered refrigerant grade propane. But this, you definitely need to take steps for this. I've worked on entire full systems that were charged with R290 before. I wasn't scared about it, but I had to follow every safety precaution to a T. Like there's no cutting corners. If we actually went straight to R290, we would have techs doing better work because for their own safety.
Yeah.
Uh, like you work with it, I work with it. Like it's if
Hmm.
you follow the safety protocols as the professionals trained that we are, it's okay. Follow the safety.
Yep.
Take a class and try to take one by Jason because he's like freaking amazing. He reads everything that comes from the EPA, like 700-page documents, puts it into a one-page document and sends it to me where I can understand what the heck it is they're talking about. Like I do not have that skill set. I cannot do that. So he makes everything a whole lot easier to follow and learn. And that's it's
Ryan,
the HVAC Learning Network at ESCO Institute.
Ryan's asking if we should be using non-invasive approaches, which is like with the temperature clamps and trying not to hook up to the system.
So if you guys don't know me, I love MeasureQuick. I think MeasureQuick's an incredible program. And now rumor has it, well, first off, you can use it for free and you can use screenshots. But rumor
Oh,
has
I
it is
heard.
that they're opening up a subscription model now because everybody's complaining about having to buy the $5 thing. So now they have a subscription model. I heard. I don't know. I haven't checked it myself. But for me personally, I want to check it the first time, hooking up the gauges, and I want to check everything that system's doing. Now, if I'm using MeasureQuick and I benchmark and save that data, now when I go back, I don't necessarily need to gauge up because I can hook up all of my other probes, and MeasureQuick does all those calculations backwards to tell you if you're still within range. So under
Mm.
that scenario, yes. But doing the manual calculations for non-invasive, man, I get numbers mixed up all the time, right? So I just gauge up at that point. Like I can, it's just personal
I've
preference. But then again, I'm using
I've heard
probes, so I'm
of
not losing.
yeah, I've heard of the non-invasive approach, and I was like looking into it. But if MeasureQuick is doing that, where it can kind of help you on that end, that's a I would consider that a game changer.
MeasureQuick really is a game changer. He's taken so much manual data and put these formulas in to where it calculates stuff for you. Now, of course, you got to have buy some more instrumentation to get these readings. But for experienced technicians, it helps me look at where the problem is because there's a lot of stuff to look at. So it simplifies everything, and I'm a visual learner, into red, green, and yellow. So when I look at that, I can see, hey, all the stuff's in green. I can just pretty much ignore it. And I see this is in yellow and this is in red. That's where I focus my attention for. And I think they have some like stuff to help you diagnose it. But now I can just simply focus my attention on what's in red and yellow, and I can diagnose it a lot faster. What I like for some other technicians is they don't have those skill sets. It collects all that data, logs it in, and then will help them also diagnose it, and you're getting better diagnostics. Now, I know a lot of people are like, it's going to take jobs away. No, it's stop the gatekeeping. Like, we need people to learn. We need people into the trade. And if that's a tool that can help them do better work and get them up to speed faster, I'm all for it. I use it myself. I think it's an incredible, incredible program. And you can use whatever you want. I'm just saying, consider it. I like
It
it a lot.
it's cool if they're making changes like that for to help everybody. Because I did use it. I did go away from it only because I well, for the content, I was taking screenshots and then I got in trouble for that. But
Oh,
uh,
same. I
I
have my
think, yeah,
personal opinions about that, but
uh,
they walked it back.
exactly. So like for me, it didn't matter too much, but like you said, it might help a newer tech seeing the visuals and stuff like that. I'm just a number guy. I see the numbers that I need to see and kind of go from there. So I never needed it in that aspect, but like you said, like I run a business, so we're hiring this year. We got guys coming in that don't know anything, or we're training them up, or whatever it is. And if I can just, kind of guide them and have them learn visually or like what looks good, what's bad, that helps a lot. Um, and we want it to be easier to get in the trade, if anything, because we don't have
Easier
enough
but better.
guys. Better, but we don't have enough guys in the trade. So I
Both.
mean, that's a thing.
Exactly. let's make it easier to bring people in and also have them doing the right thing, because we can't wait 20 years for everybody to get the experience they need.
No,
Right?
that's
We
why
we
I
need to get
am
people up to speed.
that's why I'm excited to like train up people because there's no bad habits. I can get people on the right path versus the countless older techs that I've had to argue with about doing something a certain way.
I've been doing it this way for 40 years. Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
like,
no,
hey,
I get it.
if we're gonna do it and I'm on site, we're doing it this way. That's usually my argument.
Yep. We're just gonna get it done right. I absolutely agree with that. And like Chris Stevens, HVACR videos. I love his stuff. He was using Measure Quick on his own house and found a problem that he didn't see. And
Oh
I
yeah.
thought, man, if that's not a sales point for it, then geez, I don't know what is. So I was like, that you got this down, and you saw stuff. So for me, I do a lot of remote work for people. I tried not to do tech support because it gets frustrating trying to get people to give me the information, or they'll make up numbers. But anyways, I'll take the numbers they give me and I'll put them into Measure Quick, and then I can see everything, and then I give them a report back. That way I'm not missing something, because I get all these numbers coming in, and for me, my brain doesn't process just square numbers very well. So I either have to write everything out so I can visualize it, because I'm not there hearing and feeling and seeing, or I just put it in a Measure Quick and it puts everything out to where I can just see it easily and digest it and focus on where the problems are a lot faster. So I will literally take raw data and put it into my Measure Quick manually to give them an answer faster.
Jason is like, I wish Measure Quick would just be could be used on large equipment to blueprint. Also had options to check performance. That he deals with a lot of modulating, hot gas reheat, hot gas bypass, subcoolers. You know, Jason does the big stuff, so he would love to use it over there.
I agree. And gosh, I think he could do that. It's just he needs to write a separate one for commercial, because you would just overcomplicate even some of the stuff that he's added to Measure Quick now that makes it easier. Sometimes just makes it a little too complicated for some people. So you have to get them through a
Oh yeah,
process where they only focus on this first. So,
yeah. My only complaint. I remember I had this conversation with one of them. Just make it work in landscape because I use tablets at work. Just make it work in landscape. That's my big pet peeve. Everything else is great.
yeah, I would like to see
uh,
all the dials on one screen instead of having
if
like
we could,
swipe screens.
yeah, I was gonna say if we could flip it, you got more real estate. Maybe that's
Yes. Uh,
the next thing.
I agree. I've
Uh,
made some suggestions, but he's got so much going on. Like, and
yeah.
who am I to tell Jim Bergman anything? But I've had conversations. I've had uncomfortable conversations with him before about suggestions, and that's I have nothing to do with that company. I do
Oh,
have massive respect for his program and what he's done, hands down. No
I
argument there.
respect, a lot of these companies that I talk to, but I will always give my 2 cents. Like, hey, we're the technician out in the field. This is what we want.
And I
Um,
disagree about the tunnel vision, because you're
yeah,
getting so many different pieces.
that was gonna be my point because even this reminds me not only with Measure Quick, right? Because yes, I think you mentioned it earlier, making it too easy for it's not making it too easy for somebody because it's helping them learn. With me, it reminds me of that scenario of people saying, "Don't think about the call before you get to the call because you're gonna get tunnel vision." I like to think about the call before I go because it helps me prepare. I'm a guy that likes to prepare for things and, if my instruments, make my job easier, my tools, whatever it is, my mind is a little bit clearer. I can think better. I can grasp things better. Like with Measure Quick, if it helps a technician out, maybe not look at like you said, like you enter your information, you put all your instruments, which I'm trying to get more. I want more psychrometers. I want more everything just so I can take advantage of that when you hook everything up. So like the more you can see and the more check marks you get, you can
Absolutely.
focus on the bad parts. And that's just
Well,
instead of wasting your time.
I worked for a major compressor manufacturer, and I learned how important the discharge line temperature was. And so Measure Quick monitors that discharge line. Now, you don't have to do it every time, but being able to take the fan off and have wireless probes where we can put it in there, put the fan back on and run it. I mean, it's a very important number that we can use for a lot of things. And that's a topic for another day. But first,
Uh,
does anybody else have
yeah,
any A2L questions before we get on another rabbit hole? Because there is one
yeah. I
more
was
point I
gonna
want to
say
make. If not,
a lot of these, a lot of these little tidbits we've had could be rabbit holes themselves. But yeah, if anybody has any questions for A2Ls, we can continue with that.
so
Yeah,
this is
134.
134A. Everybody's familiar with that. And then here's your replacement for it, the 1234YF. So it's also a single molecule. It's non-ozone depleting, which sounds awesome. It's non-ozone depleting and no global warming potential. This makes up 31% of R454B. And because they mix this in with R32, that's what gives it the lower global warming potential number. Now, we also need more 454B by volume than 32. So, like, if you ultimately got it out, I don't know what the big difference is, but people argue about which one's better. They're both eventually going to be going away because 1234YF breaks down into TF or PFAS or TFS chemicals that are called forever chemicals in the atmosphere. Europe is already working on banning this. They're already talking about this in the USA. So eventually it's going to be an issue. And then also we have R32, which has a high global warming potential that Europe is already moving away from. So eventually we're going to be changing again. And the other thing is, it's a little fashion, I thought, because New York State has actually moved forward with a global warming potential limit of 20. I can't remember the exact year that they've decided on that, but they're going to mandate a global warming potential of 20. So that pretty much ensures you're going to either be using CO2 or propane for new systems in New York by that time. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens nationwide, because just because one state's doing it doesn't mean it'll be nationwide. But
Yeah,
because one state did it before is why we ended up part of why we ended up here. So there's going to be changes again. I'm not happy at the changes, but the thing is, I don't make any of these rules, and it doesn't help getting mad about it. Fight before it happens, but once it happens, like, it's temperature and pressure. Take the pressure, convert it to a saturated temperature, and then calculate superheat. We need to measure the superheat going into the compressor to make sure it's not too low, so we're not flooding it back, and then make sure it's not too high, so we're not burning it up, and then make sure that we have enough superheat so that we're cooling the evaporator coil, and then make sure pressure is high enough where it's not freezing. So temperature converted to a pressure, pressure converted to a temperature, and we're going to be changing refrigerants again and again, who knows how many more times. And I
yeah.
see a note on there,
Which
bring
one?
back R12. So fun fact, like, I don't want to talk about, I don't care who anybody votes for. I voted independent, so it didn't matter. R30, like, all this changeover to R32 and 454B, that is part of the AIM Act, signed by Congress, bipartisan, and it was signed into law by President Trump in December of 2020. So, like, right and left, both sides made this change happen. So regardless of who you vote for or prefer or like, both sides are in on to make this happen. So it's unlikely that we're going to go
To
back.
yeah, we're
Um,
not going back.
so
Um,
so that's,
so
for what it's
then,
worth.
because we had that argument on nights about which one would be better, because everyone's going, you know, be either R32 or for 454. They're probably both just going to be phased out around the same time anyway, because
Yep.
I think we were talking about the number, the GWP, all that, like they're different, but eventually they're both going to be bad. There's no way around it.
Exactly. It's a stepping stone before we get to something that's actually going to be flammable. I had a
It's
really good
just
question, and
it's just me that I already have so many damn refrigerants. I'm gonna have to carry two more, but that's just me doing
that
both
that is a worry.
refrigeration. Yeah, both doing both commercial refrigeration and HVAC. So
There's companies selling R22 in these cans now, and there's companies that are working on making 410A in
yes,
these cans. So,
no,
like,
they do have
they're
them. I seen
addressing that.
the
It's going
DIY
to be more
channels do that.
expensive, but, like, the idea of being able to stock more refrigerants in a van, like, I don't know. I'm not happy at that either. The question is not being able to top systems off. So
Oh yeah, the A12
they want
sensors.
you to fix leaks anyways, but the sensor, like, you have to have a pretty good size leak before you build up enough volume in that evaporator coil to set off that sensor. So if you have a leak big enough to set that sensor off, it's going to be a leak that you're going to need to fix anyways. Small leaks, like, over time, like, It's unlikely that you're going to have, you could still potentially top them off, although it's still best to fix leaks. But it takes a pretty decent sized leak to fill that cavity for it to trip. And then here's the cool thing is once it senses refrigerant, it shuts the unit off, shuts the furnace off, runs the fan, clears it out, and then it goes into a test mode and it waits 5 minutes and it says,
Mm.
hey, if there's not a leak in 5 minutes, most of them will go back into operation. So it's not that it's like locking it out forever. It'll go through its clearing mode, and like every manufacturer could be do what they want, but most of them have just agreed that, hey, we'll clear it and then we'll wait 5 minutes. If there's no alarm, we're going back into operation.
It's
So
kind of like
for
that
what it's worth.
your safety switch on the drain line. Like you got to fix whatever's causing it, or it's gonna trip again. Like there's no way around it.
Right.
And Grapevine mentioned about the grid view. I had to download it again,
Oh yeah,
so you can get a grid view and get some more information. But I like the aesthetics of the old school
I like the
gauges.
dials.
The little
It's just
Yeah, the little
nostalgia,
dials
right?
make it worth it. Yeah. So
Or cars have dials, it's
make the dials in landscape. Oh, someone else asked if we would need locking caps going forward.
well,
Do we still
we
need
had
locking
locking
caps?
caps. They were code back in 2012. So unless you had like a locked gate, everything's supposed to have, unless it's like a locked gate or on a roof, you're supposed to have locking caps anyways. Now, I'm not saying I like locking. I don't like locking caps. I don't like them. I'm just saying code. It's been in the code for a very long
You're
time.
supposed to.
What you do is on you. But as far as code goes, yeah, we should, as professionals, already have all those keys anyways. I know it's another pain. We should have those. I know there's methods out there of breaking those, but hey, just get the key, right? Like if a customer paid for locking caps, I don't feel like I should break their system, but that's just me.
Megan asked, manufacturers that are using 454 are telling her that the GWP limit would be moved to either 500 or 600 by 2027. Um,
So I, every manufacturer hates Daikin. And so they keep telling people like it's going to be moved down just above 454B to cut out. I tell you, that's not going to happen. If they moved it to force out one refrigerant and not the other,
it'd be
you would
both.
have like major lawsuits.
Yeah,
Also, the other thing is they're not going to move it just a few hundred points. They're going to move it a big way. It's like it's going to be down to like 150. So when they move it again, it's going to be moved where they move both. Here's the other cool thing. If we actually think R32, it takes less R32 for the same amount of capacity of cooling than it takes for 454B. About, from what I've heard, I haven't ran the numbers, but about 30%. It takes about 30% less R32 than it does with 454B. 454B is like 29 point whatever or 28 point whatever percent 1234 YF. Whoops. So really, if you remove the 123, like if you actually did it by volume, it looks to me like they have pretty well the same global warming potential
oh
by
yeah,
volume. Because you need more 454B for the same amount of cooling as you would need for the R32. So if we look at it by that molecule leaking out, but if we look at it for actual volume, I mean, it's just a numbers game at that point. And here's my opinion. My opinion only. You're welcome to disagree with my opinion. My opinion is, hey, let's be concerned about the environment. But what if we had manufacturers that made coils that didn't leak all the time and the refrigerant didn't leak out into the air? And what if we actually enforced our existing laws that said don't vent refrigerant? Don't openly vent refrigerant. Like you make efforts to put it into a recovery tank and send it back. If we didn't have refrigerant into the atmosphere, it's not an environmental issue. But that's just my personal opinion. You're welcome to disagree with that. To me, it just seems ridiculous to have a new chemical constantly for the environment. Like let's either jump to really dangerous in larger quantities and have, you know, natural refrigerants, or let's start working on, hey, let's take efforts to not have it leak out in the atmosphere. But I'm just an
yep,
HVAC guy.
yeah, yeah. That would be ideal.
Yeah, and remember this breaks down into forever chemicals, PFAS. You can look it up. No, wait, that's this one. 1230. Nope, this one. Sorry, 1234YF breaks into forever
Uh-huh.
chemicals PFAS. So, even if you remove, even if that was true about they're only going to move it down just enough to cut one refrigerant out, this is going to be forever chemicals that get into the water and cancer issues. So, you know, there's, it's a matter of time before it's going away, both of them. It's just,
Well, yeah,
it just,
like I said, we had that argument, and I was like, well, I mean, honestly, if anything, they're probably phase both out just to get you on the next one.
yep. So much cheaper. This is so much cheaper. Daikin said, hey, anybody can
I
make
hadn't
this.
looked.
And then Honeywell patented 454B, and they have an agreement with Chemours to make, and it's expensive. Has anybody bought 1234YF? I can literally buy R12 for cheaper than I can buy 1234YF. Like, this
I
stuff is
never
expensive. Like,
I
it's
never even got to that. I think I was still putting 134 in my last vehicle, but I haven't bought the new ones. I'm still working with 404 and 410 over here.
And somebody asked about the volume. There is a limit if it's under a certain quantity. I can't remember that number off the top of my head, but if it's underneath a certain amount, you don't have to have any sensors at all. Like ductless units, they don't have to have any sensors. It's underneath
Yeah.
the threshold, the quantity it has. So, and then there's also bigger units that have to have more sensors or more requirements. It does depend on the size. And right, it's all in the training course from ESCO. All those details.
Anything else you want to go over before we
Yeah,
sign off? I don't want to keep you too long.
40%. Gosh, man, there's so much stuff we could talk about. Oh my goodness. Um, man,
Did
I
you have
think we
anything in
covered like
mind?
I think we got the big details down. The biggest thing is we'll make sure everybody just keeps learning. And just because you were told something by somebody that you care about, um, doesn't mean that it's the right way. Like, learn that, look stuff up. I've started looking up things that I believe to be true and found out some of them are and some of them are not. So yeah, just keep learning and then help other people when you can. Let's stop the gatekeeping. And then most likely somebody out there, you're a mentor to somebody else, even if you don't know it. Somebody's probably watching you. So
That's
um,
the crazy part. And what, like, on your points, like, yeah, whether I watch, you, Craig, Brian, or whoever it is, I still go down a rabbit hole and research and fact check everybody. And that's, the more you know about something, the more confident you can be about, what it is that you're talking about. And the whole mentor thing that you brought up, like us being online, even just showing our work, like someone else is like, watching, and they want to do whatever you're doing, or they base their decisions on your opinion. So be careful with that. I always try to be super transparent with what I'm doing. I'm not trying to push anything on anybody. It's all my, experiments and what I would use at work. So, that's an important one too. Make sure you stay a honest, good technician online, and don't try and sell people anything. Are we good?
yeah, I think so. I think we've covered everything, man. I really appreciate you. You got a great audience, really great questions. I couldn't keep up with everything in the chat, so if I missed your question, I apologize. But yeah,
Just
there's so much to this.
go bombard Ty on one of his social medias, and ask him all the questions we didn't get to. I'm sure he'll love it.
Yeah, I love it when people ask questions and not just out going, "You're an idiot." Like, like people have questions or want to like, actually conversate
Yeah, like
about
I actually
HVAC. Like, I love that.
I actually want to talk when somebody like leaves a comment about something. I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. I want to know more.
Yeah,
But
me
yeah,
too.
thanks again for taking the time. I know, we've been here for a little while, and everything that you showed us was great. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I can't believe it. Oh, it's already, wow. Time went by fast. It felt like it was like
It's
30
getting
minutes.
late. Yeah. So thanks again, man. Everybody
Thank you.
watching and listening, I appreciate you guys, and thanks for tuning in. We'll get out of here.